Hi, welcome back to the World of Sciences. In this video we'll be looking at the 5 biggest supervolcanic explosions in the history of Earth. Now let me tell you, if you think Yellowstone was a large eruption, you will be very surprised when you see what's at number 1, but unfortunately it is still located in the USA. Also, make sure you keep watching as we also have 2 bonus supervolcanoes I wanted to give a mention to, I guess. Oh, and if you like this video and others like it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, stick around and see what's at number 1. You'll be amazed, trust me. Supervolcanoes are not usually on your radar unless you've got a special interest in them. If you're in North America, more likely the supervolcanoes that are within your awareness include Yellowstone, Valles Caldera, and Long Valley Caldera. If you're in Europe, Campi Flegrei in Italy would more likely be of interest, and if you're in Australia or New Zealand, more likely you've heard of Lake Toba being talked about as a supervolcano in the region. But are these well-known volcanoes the biggest? Are they on the list today? Well, let's find out. At number 5 is the Whakamaru Eruption. The Whakamaru supervolcano eruption is the largest known eruption from the era known as the Toba volcanic zone. The VEI-8 super eruption ejected approximately 2,000 kilometers cubed. It was believed to have erupted around 255,000 years ago. The supervolcano is located on the North Island of New Zealand. The Toba eruption is notable for its volume. In all, probably about 100 cubic kilometers of pumice and ash, including now concealed beneath the lake, and its extreme vigor and violence. At one point, the plume probably reached 45 to 50 kilometers in height and laid down pumice deposits over an area about 160 kilometers wide that stretched over the east coast and out into the Pacific Ocean. During the final stage, something happened though. The vent area was ripped open in an enormous, powerful blast-like event. Scientists suggest that material was erupted in only about 400 seconds, so it travelled at speeds exceeding 200 meters a second or 700 kilometers an hour, and had travelled about 80 kilometers in all directions across all obstacles. The flow travelled so fast that it flattened the forest, and these have been investigated by botanists as examples of pre-human flora. Toba is one of the world's 5 youngest volcanoes. Its early super explosion 25,500 years ago reshaped the North Island and changed the course of the Whakamaru River. The results of this eruption was a red sky over Rome and China, according to historical records. Chinese records even attest to hear the explosion. Imagine that! Looking at a globe and see how far away New Zealand is from China and Rome. This was truly a global event. There were no local populations in New Zealand. It was only reports from humans in other countries that we know what happened in Toba. A Lake Toba eruption would cause issues both nationally and internationally, affecting global air travel, air quality, and so forth. If you visit Toba today, you can find pumice on the edges of the lake, a type light volcanic rock that was formed during Lake Toba eruptions thousands of years ago. The chances of Lake Toba of erupting today is pretty low, but it's still possible. And if it did, it would cause massive economical pressure to New Zealand and perhaps lead to a global strain. Okay, and at number 4, surprisingly, this low, we have Yellowstone Huckleberry Ridge Eruption. In the ancient past, the supervolcano at Yellowstone led to some of the largest continental eruptions in Earth's history. Each of the world's roughly 12 supervolcanoes is capable of spewing up to, well, thousands of times more magma and ash than any eruption ever recorded in human history. Scientists now find the biggest Yellowstone eruption, the 4th largest known to science, which created the 2 million year old Huckleberry Ridge deposits, was, well, actually at least 2 different eruptions that occurred about 6,000 years apart. The new ages for each Huckleberry Ridge eruptions reduced the volume of the first eruption to about 550 cubic miles, that's 2,200 cubic kilometers, making this eruption a VEI-8, roughly 12% less than previous 4. A second eruption of about 70 cubic miles, that's 290 cubic kilometers, took place more than 6,000 years later. I mean, in comparison, the 1980 eruption from Mount St. Helens produced just about, well, a quarter of a cubic mile. That's 1 cubic kilometer of ash. I mean, this is massive. The first Huckleberry Ridge eruption still deserves to be called a super. I mean, by itself, it's the fourth largest known to have occurred on Earth, darkening the skies with ash from Southern California to the Mississippi River. The big eruptions from Yellowstone are still certainly big. I mean, more frequent eruptions by knowing how this supervolcano behaved in the past. I mean, scientists can now better predict what might happen in the future. Okay, number 3 on our list is the Atana Ignimbrite eruption. Atana Ignimbrite, located in Chile, erupted around 4 million years ago, ejecting 2,500 cubic kilometers, making the eruption a VEI-8. The Atana Ignimbrite is a voluminous rhyodacite ash flow tuff composite sheet that consists of at least 4 flow units, forming a single cooling unit, which were erupted almost simultaneously, at the time only loosely constrained to, well, the radiometric age data to lie between 3.8 and 4.5 million years ago. La Pacana is a supervolcano and is responsible for the eruption of the giant Atana Ignimbrite, which reaches a volume of 2,500 to 3,500 cubic kilometers and consists arguably the third largest explosion eruption ever known on Earth. This seems to be a supervolcano well known of, but less talked about, I guess. Okay, number 2 on our list, we're getting close. We have the Lake Toba eruption. If you haven't heard of Lake Toba, you soon will. Located on the island of Sumatra in Indonesia, Lake Toba is a beautiful caldera lake measuring 100 kilometers by 30 kilometers. Its odd elongated shape is a result of interactions between the magma chamber and the shear forces of the Sumatra fault along the west that stretch it out. The first eruption left a big depression in the ground, a caldera, and the subsequent 2 eruptions at 0.8 million years ago and 0.5 million years ago just enlarged the depression. The most recent eruption was around 74,000 years ago, created the large caldera depression that we see today, that has since filled up with, well, rainwater and run off to form a lake. This produced a massive outflow of ash and rock and debris, known as Ignimbrite. This 74,000-year-old Ignimbrite has since been named the youngest Toba tuff, and is one of the most widely studied Ignimbrites in the volcanology field. This mega bang caused a prolonged worldwide nuclear winter and released ash in a huge plume that spread to the northwest and covered, well, India, Pakistan, and the Gulf region in a blanket of 1 to 5 meters. That's 3 to 15 feet deep. Toba ash is also found in the Greenland ice, recorded and submarine cores in the Indian Ocean, allowing a precise data marker. In our list, the Toba eruption is the most accurately dated, dramatic, and unambiguous event before the last ice age. Toba is also regarded by some as having caused worldwide population extinctions as a result of nuclear winter that followed. India bore the brunt of the massive ash flow and may have suffered massive extinction. Since the Toba plume spread northwest across the Indian Ocean from Sumatra, this event may explain why most Indian maternal genetic subgroups of the 2 founder lines, M and N, are not shared elsewhere in Asia, and the dates of the re-expansion are, well, paradoxically younger in India than elsewhere in East Asia and Australasia. This is interesting. I mean, according to the Toba catastrophe theory, modern human evolution was affected by a recent large volcanic event. Within the last 3 to 5 million years after humans and other ape lineages diverged from the Balahominid stem line, the human line produced a variety of human species. According to Toba catastrophe theory, a massive volcano eruption changed the course of human history by severely reducing the human population. I mean, this volcanic eruption may have reduced the average global temperature by 3 to 3.5 degrees Celsius for several years, and may have possibly triggered an ice age. Researchers estimated that some 2,000 to 3,000 cubic environmental of rock and ash were ejected from the volcano when it exploded, making this the second biggest eruption Earth has ever seen, making the eruption of Toba the largest VEI-8 eruption. Atana has currently passed since the last super eruption 74,000 years ago. It is too short in comparison to within the periodicity of large eruption events at Toba. I mean, the critical mass of the molten magmas and violators in the upper crust has most likely not yet been achieved, and the next super eruption may be expected in some dozens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. So Toba is not ready to erupt soon. However, Toba magma generating engines continue to be active at present, and despite its current period of inactivity, this volcano system may generate strong eruptions in the future. Okay, at the start of the video, I said I wanted to add two, well, bonus volcanoes. The reason why I wanted to add these because they're probably some of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world, and they're not well known, or they're not classed as to be as big as what they are. So, the first volcano would be the Wah Springs. The VEI-8 eruption with the greatest volume of ejecta, known as the Wah Springs Eruption, that occurred in somewhat now the state of Utah about 30 million years ago. It is estimated to have produced over 5,500 cubic kilometers of ejectile in about a week. I mean, this is massive and may have even been the largest and most threatening supervolcano on the planet to date. Okay, our second bonus volcano is Campi Flegrei. The Flegrei Fields are a large volcanic area situated in the northwestern Naples, Italy. It was declared a regional park in 2003. Lying mostly underwater, the area of the Caldera consists of 24 craters and volcanic edifices. In 1538, an 8th day eruption in the area deposited enough material to create a new hill. It has risen about 2 meters, 7 feet from the ground since 1970. It is a volcano capable of producing a VEI-7 eruption. Campi Flegrei is a huge caldera, a crater that often forms after a mouth of a volcano has collapsed following an eruption. That sits in the west of Naples. Close to 1 million people live within the city's administrative limits, making it one of the most densely populated areas in Europe. The last time Campi Flegrei erupted was in 1538, but this was a relatively minor event. Around 40,000 years ago, it produced a super colossal eruption, ejecting an estimated 48 cubic miles of magma. This event has previously been linked to, well, the extinction of the Neanderthals. In the 1980s, the volcano started rumbling back to life. At this time, it produced a series of earthquakes under the city of Vesuvius, and the ground rose by 1.8 meters, 6 feet, raising fears of another eruption. In terms of the scale, any future eruptions just cannot be predicted, but there is no doubt that the volcano is becoming more dangerous. The big question we have to answer now is if there is a big layer of magma that is, well, rising to the surface, or something less worrying which could find its way to the surface out at sea, I guess. Okay, finally we've reached the number 1 spot on the largest eruptions on Earth. Okay, number 1 we have La Garita Caldera Eruption. Scientists at US Geological Survey used the Volcano Explosive Index, the VEI scale, which we've been talking about, to measure magnitude of the volcanic blast. It's a logarithmic scale that runs from 1 to 8. A magnitude 1 eruption spews less than 350,000 cubic feet, that's 10,000 cubic meters, of volcanic tephra, which consists of ash and rocks. A magnitude 8 eruption puts out more than 240 cubic miles, that's 1,000 cubic kilometers of the stuff. To help grasp the scale, the recent eruption in Iceland were both faults. The 1980s eruption of Mount St. Helens was a magnitude 5. So the ones we've been talking about above this has either been a VEI 7 or a VEI 8, so they're pretty strong. I mean, according to the USGS, it is the largest known eruption since the Ordovician era, between 504 and 438 million years ago. It was so large, in fact, that in 2004 report in the Bulletin of Volcanology, scientists recommended adding a 9th level to the VEI scale and declared the Garita eruption a magnitude 9.2. Although this ranking is some of a debate, the scale of an ancient volcanic activity is partly based on estimates. Garita is the only known magnitude 9 eruptions. Currently, the massive Circum-Pacific Ring of Fire seismic belt is home to more than half of the world's active volcanoes above sea level. This is because the Ring of Fire is a belt of convenient plate margins, or a subduction zone, that surround the Pacific plate. Areas of tectonic plate subductions, where one plate is forced under another, producing a powerful earthquake and volcanic activity. If any of these volcanoes erupted the way that they did all those years ago, Earth and its climate would most definitely change for the worst, and life would be close to unbearably survived. I mean, could this happen soon? I mean, what are your thoughts? Okay, if you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button for more videos like this. We are now on Patreon and Facebook, so please join us there. Also, don't forget to check out our ebook, Interesting Facts About the Human Body. The link is in the description below. And remember, stay curiously minded. Until next time.